only mode.
Hi, this is Meg Herman, and we're going to be starting in just about 30 seconds or so, but I just wanted to let you know we're here. I see a couple names of people that I recognize, so welcome. And we'll be starting in about 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, let's get started. My name is Meg Herman, and I am your facilitator for today. And so hopefully things will start moving. There we go. I'm here at the WBDC as an advisor to you, and you are welcome to ask questions. You'll notice over in your box to the right, you will see a place for questions that you can ask questions or make comments throughout, and I'll be checking that periodically. You'll also notice that there's a place for handouts, and there's 2 handouts for you to download, and that you should download those as soon as possible. So that you can walk through, and they're not going to be available after the webinar, so you'll want to download them sometime while you're here. So what we're going to explore today is how to make the sales process less painful for you, because most people think of sales and they think of the old days car salesman who was like all over you and, you know, inauthentic and so on. That's not how sales are done effectively. So we need to dissuade you of that concept and help you think about how you can do this authentically, so that you can think about how you can deliver great service throughout the buying process, which is also from your end the selling process, and how you can help clients make decisions to buy your product. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to talk about sales as service. So this is what's known as a sales funnel. And if you had 100 people at the top of that funnel that you are attracting, you can expect less than half of those to probably engage with you. And of those that engage with you, some of them you're going to be able to nurture, and some of them you're going to actually sell to. And some will actually not renege on their sales and actually get the product, and you'll be delivering the product. When you get to the bottom, it's about 1% of the people that you attract. This is still true that you need to know a lot of people in order to make deals. So you need to see selling as part of your process. It's not, don't be discouraged with that. This is just what is. So, you know, how do you find the clients that are most in alignment with the solutions that you provide for them? And then how do you talk to them to engage them, nurture those relationships to the point where they want to buy from you? And so before we go further, let's have a poll question, okay? Let's see what you're thinking about your poll. So let's have our first poll question. Okay, we want to know first where you're from. So please respond. Oh boy, the numbers are going up quickly. We're almost there. I think there's an outlier who hasn't voted. But clearly, everybody is from the, let's close the poll so you can see what I see. So with 83% voting, everybody who voted is from Chicagoland. Great, that means you can come in and see me sometime. That's wonderful. Or see one of the other counselors at WBDC. Now, let's have the second poll. Now we want to know, how did you hear about this webinar? So nobody's putting that somebody nagged them, i.e. word of mouth. 2/3 of you have voted. Almost there. Anybody else? Somebody must be doing this on their phone and can't vote or something. Anyway, okay, let's show the results that I see. Again, with 83% voting, most of you found about our website, and somebody did get nagged. Word of mouth. You should take this. And maybe I nagged you for that. That would be okay. And somebody found it through our eBlast newsletter. Well, that's great. So we'll go on now. Thank you for that input. Let's look at the next slide. For those of you who took the assessing your business with GrowthWheel tools, this should look familiar. If you haven't taken that, the next time I'm doing that is next week on, I think, the 2nd at noon. So mark your calendars for that if you need to take it. Remember, here's our GrowthWheel set of tools. So we know that all businesses have to deal with customer relations, operations, organizations, and a sturdy business concept. And no matter what stage of business you are, no matter what industry, no matter what size, everybody has to deal with these kinds of things. And we know that in each one of these areas, we have tools and frameworks to help us explore issues that we might be having. So in one look, you'll be able to tell where you are and where you could be going. And just like last week's webinar, we're going to be going into the middle green wedge here. So we're taking the tools from this area. So during the webinar, as I mentioned to you earlier, I want you to look on the lower right side of your webinar participation window, and you'll see the article we're referencing and that we referenced last week, The Art of Selling. If you got it last week, you don't need to download it again because it's the same article. But you'll have a new tool there, and you'll also be able to download this GrowthWheel Service Offering tool. And I'll just wait a second or a minute or so for you to do that. That was the quickest minute you're ever going to experience. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the framework for this idea in terms of customer relations. Really, whenever you're selling, the first issue is competency. In other words, are you good at what you do? And the second is trust. Sometimes people start with trust and then they go to competency. It's really not relevant. It's those are the big buckets of people that what their concerns are. In our last session, which is archived on our website at www.bbc.org/event/online business education, we dealt with sales arguments and objections, which is part of the process. And so you have to realize it's not you, it's a process that you need to learn skills in to be comfortable in developing authentic relationships and having these conversations where you will inevitably have objections and arguments. And so that's part of the process because your clients are trying to clarify for themselves whether you are trustworthy, whether the product is worth what it's about, in other words, the price. They also have to decide, do I really need that product? And can I afford it? And about the risks. So, you know, when you're talking about sales, you know, as service, you need to be prepared to be in non-defensive conversations when people bring up these kinds of issues, because if you're on the other side of the thing, you would be asking the same kinds of questions if you didn't know. So we're going to look at a tool to help you think through your own version of selling as service. So before we talk about sales as service, we're going to spend some time talking about what not to do. And there's a lot of what not to do, because this is what many of us think about sales as, and we kind of freak out. So, and this information on these what not to do is taken from an online article that Karen Goldner found and shared with me about the 15 trust-destroying behaviors salespeople need to abandon. And it's by Peter Caputa, C-A-P-U-T-A, at PC4Media. And while these may seem obvious, you may get caught up in them if you're feeling pressured to sell, sell, sell. So don't do these things. They backfire. And you might have some real fun with seeing some of these, because you might recognize yourself in it and it's like, yeah, I used to do that, but of course you're better now. So the reality is that you'll actually lose potential customers if you do these kinds of things, who may have been interested in your product or service. And if you've been more respectful and authentic, they would still be with you. So these are some things you want to avoid. So obviously sending self-serving prospecting emails, sending annoyingly persistent follow-up emails, spamming prospects on LinkedIn, and using underhanded social selling tricks to get appointments. That's really none of these are going to get you anywhere. What else should you stop doing? You should look at, not using "re" in the subject line. That implies that we have a prior relationship or a previous communication. So we are more likely to be open and read that email response. This is a great way to destroy trust and your credibility. So don't do that. Another thing is tricking you, using a vague voicemail like, "Hi, this is Sam, call me back." That's a way of tricking people to get you to call them back. I never respond to these. So don't just leave your name and phone number and no information about why you're calling or the company that you represent. Vagueness equals unwanted sales call. Think about those telemarketers that call at dinner time. Third, it's so not about you. People have their own concerns, and you are generally not one of them. So you can stop worrying about presenting you and your capabilities. If you focus on them and what the problem is and how you can help solve those problems for them or reduce their pain, they're going to be very interested in you. So focus on them. Some other things to stop doing. Okay, so you send an unsolicited calendar invite. It's another form of spam that that maybe gets through spam filters. Great, you say. And no, I say. Think about it. That salesperson is presumptuous and clogging your calendar. Do you really want to be thought of like and known as that person? Secondly, show up to your meeting unprepared. Oh, so many of us do this. This is the ultimate disrespect of your clients' or your prospects' time. Ask yourself, what value am I adding and what am I going to create for the customer in this meeting? If you can't answer, you should cancel or call back and gain clarity on better goals for the call for both of you. Whenever I have a meeting, I usually ask people when they come to see me, so what is the most important thing you want to get out of this meeting? In the meantime, I'm thinking about what's the most important thing I want to get out of this meeting. So we're not just shooting the breeze, we're actually having a focused and intentional conversation. So the third area is, like ignoring objections instead of addressing them, when you continue to pitch benefits of your product or solution. Yesterday I had this opportunity when I was in a meeting with an attorney firm, and we were looking at some ways of potential working together, and we were exploring that from both sides. And I realized after I was starting to describe all our services, I went, oh, I don't know if they need that. So I said, is this what you want to hear yet? And it was like, no, it wasn't completely off, but it was like, well, let's hear what everybody's wanting first. It's like, great. And so we circled back later when it was more appropriate. So, so don't ignore objections. And instead, if you don't have an answer to an objection, write it down and get back to them. And say, that's a good thought. Let me think on that and get back to you on that. Prospects want to be heard before they're buying, and if you don't listen, they are so done. Okay, so with that, let's have a couple more poll questions. There's a poll in there somewhere. There we go. So we want to find out how long all of you have been in business. So are you at the startup phase? You've started planning, but you're not generating revenue yet. You've been in business 1 to 3 years, or you've been established for more than 3 years. Great. Almost everybody's voted. And since that's the same amount of voting that we had before, oh my God, 100% voted. Let's close the polls and you can see what I see. So a third of you are at the concept stage. Great. Some of you are at the 1 to 3, and over half of you are established business more than 3 years. Well, great. So this is really for all of you, because all of this is true no matter what stage you're in business. Okay, so let's do poll 4. We want to know if you've worked with any small business development center before. We're almost there. Almost. Yay! Close the poll. So a third of you haven't worked with us before. Well, gosh, what's stopping you? You're in Chicago. There's no reason yet you shouldn't come to some SBDC in the Chicagoland area and get help on working on your business. So don't delay after this webinar. Well, I mean, stay for the webinar. But after the webinar, call your nearest SBDC. If it's us, yay, come to us. If it's someplace else, there's one at U of I. There's one at, there's the Illinois Hispanic Chamber at 1871. There's the Industrial Council for Northwest Chicago. There's us. So there's Governor State University, far south. So, and there's up northwest, there's Norvik in the American Manufacturing Association. So don't delay with getting help. Nobody gets through doing business on their own. Okay, so with that little preaching, I'm moving on. Okay, so a couple other things about what not to do. So, so somebody said, I'm really interested in this doohickey that you have. And they're kind of ready to buy. They just want to sort of walk through it. And you blow it because you go like, oh, well, then you should also try and look at this. And so you're trying to sell them something with more bells and whistles and a higher price point. Just keep remembering how you feel when someone has tried to do that to you. So don't do that. Bait and switch. Ooh, ooh, ooh. When I was a VISTA volunteer and a community organizer, probably before every one of you on the call was born, I worked with the community to pressure the local A&P because they were bait and switching in terms of pricing and advertising. They'd advertise something and then, oh, we don't have that, or, oh, we only have the higher price things available. So we were successful in getting them to change their practices. So I really hate this one. For those of you who don't know what this means, it's when you hook prospects by saying something is free or there's a free trial period. And then you reveal you have to pay from day one, or the services don't really include everything that you thought they did, or they have to sign up for something as well. Phone companies are notorious, and cable companies are notorious for that kind of activity. So the third thing is you don't trash talk your other prospects to your peers, especially, I mean, if you do that in-house with a colleague, that's up to you. But you never know who those people know. And so talking to your peers about how clueless and incompetent the customer is a great way to have that word get back to them. And because they may be somebody's kin or friend, or they've done business with them, so don't do that either. Okay, some more things. I know there's a lot of things not to do. You know, if there's going to be anything left to do, stay tuned, there is. So, refusing to take no for an answer. Okay, so it's good to persist, but it's bad to pressure. And maybe in the old days this worked, but not so now. If somebody says firmly the answer is no, take that answer and move on. Remember, in sales, it's not unusual for there to be 99 no's before there's a yes. You know, it may not be that high in your industry, but no's are part of the whole process, so don't worry about that. On the other hand, don't be a doormat. You are an expert in your area, and people want to talk to experts who can help them see new solutions to their challenges. So ask tougher questions, and to help the client think through their issue, help them think more critically. And finally, don't be a false friend or pandering to the client, and or just telling them what to hear. Ooh, man. It's like what my reaction to this is always, what am I, a sap? Because that's what this conveys to me, that you, the client or the prospect, are shallow and haven't invested time in things, when in fact it put the mirror up to you. It's you, the provider, being shallow and not investing time in creating solutions that will help me, the potential client. Okay, I see we have a question here, so I'm going to see if I can pull that down. I hope that has changed. Somebody said there's still poll results on the screen. Should it be back to the presentation? Eleni, poll person, make sure that those poll results are no longer on the screen. Okay. Thank you, person. Still on. Oh, Eleni? I turned them off from here. We're having a little technical difficulty. Are they, as Chris says, they're still on. Still seeing quick poll results, says Carolyn. Okay, we're trying to fix this. Okay. Eleni, we need to get the poll questions off of the screen. My organizer should be there. Clients, are they clear? Yes. Somebody says thanks. Whew. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so now let's move on. So here's what the screen that said, or some of the things, and here's the previous screen. I'm going to show you the previous screen. That's what I was talking about before. And remember, all of this will be archived on our website, so you can review it again and hear what I said with each screen. So those are some of the things I talked about since the last poll questions. Sending unsolicited calendar, and so on. And this was where we were when I got the wonderful information that we had a boo-boo. So that's the highly technical term. Okay, so a couple last things about what not to do. Over-promising and under-delivering. Much better to be conservative and under-promise and over-deliver. This can really kill relationships because you've broken the trust, you're not reliable. Sometimes you underestimate the complexity of an opportunity and close the deal with something that the company can't deliver. So, particularly as you're growing, you may get an order that's bigger than you can handle. You think, we can step up, but maybe you can't. So better for you to take smaller steps, underpromise and overdeliver, make clients, raving fans. I have raving fans, and what we want to do is make sure that you have raving fans. The last thing that I'm going to talk about what not to do is we all know we can't make people feel anything. That it is their interpretation, but we can sure contribute to that. And this is an unprofessional and a great way to shut the door to the relationship. Oh my gosh, if somebody makes me do this, they get the look. Okay, so I'm going to check and see if there's any other questions. No. Okay. So let's move on. So you can do better. So now that we've kind of cleansed the palate, what can you do? You can learn to support your clients or potential customers. You can listen. So I'm going to show you a tool, actually another framework first, and you can use the tool that we're going to give you to help you plan the services that accompany your sales process. Because again, we were thinking about like how can you serve clients? How can we concretize, make concrete that idea of service and with selling? And of course, getting into the practice of listening 20%, listening 80% and talking 20% gives you a lot of information from your client that you can then better help them. Also, remember we also have available on our online on-demand sales training courses. There's 2 of them. And from the place where I got this information about what not to do, there's a sales training course as well, HubSpot. So you can look up HubSpot and sales training and you'll find another resource there. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the sales chain. We're going to look at the big picture here to sort of remind you that the sales process is not just closing the deal. Just like we had the sales funnel, now we have a look at the sales chain, or the various tasks. This particular framework is in your article that you're encouraged to download anytime during the webinar as the GrowthWheel tool. Remember, you can and should provide services before, during, and after a customer buys from you. So we're going to briefly review the parts of the sales cycle so you can be reminded of how much you, A, are in relationship to the client, and B, how much service is really entailed in building a long-term client relationship. Okay, so first, when we look at this preparing for the sale, we are planning first of all, we must have well targeted our market. We know what kind of problems we solve with our solutions, and that leads us to being very picky about who our targeted sales targets are, and so that helps us plan with each individual what services might be needed to them. We are generating then leads. That is part of that whole attraction of the sales funnel, and then we're also building any sales materials that we think are useful. So the first phase of these 12 tasks is the preparation of the sale, including all of the planning activities. And yet, if you have not targeted who your clients are, your sales materials won't fit them and they'll probably end up in the garbage. So you want to have your sales message fit your intended targets. Let's look at the second part, opening the sale. This obviously includes networking, client dialogue, conversations we would call this, and networking with prospects, where you're going to really choose these events wisely in a very targeted way, and then hopefully entering in dialogue with clients that help them move further. And when you're in this stage, the client dialogue, this is where your elevator pitch comes in. This is why it's really important to be client-centered in your elevator pitch. What do I mean by that? I mean, you're talking first about when clients have the interest. For example, I'm going to give you one of mine. When clients have an interest of starting a business, my job is to help them learn what they need to learn, build their business acumen, so that they will build sustainable and successful businesses. The only result I want from that is something like, really, how do you do that? So that now I'm starting to engage the client. Or they're going to say, I'd really like to know more about that. So I might be setting up a time to have a further dialogue in a networking session. So, so you want to have that dialogue by either calling or writing them, having in-person meetings with them. And again, this is so critical that the listening comes in. Be thinking as you're listening to them, how could you be of service to this client? If you don't know what they need, how can you be of service? So in the third phase, now people are interested, they're wanting more detail, they want a fuller presentation, for example, which leads to you actually closing the sale. They're saying, okay, I want it. What are the terms? So that's what we mean by negotiation. So you've made a presentation and an offer. You've asked for the sale. Very important. Don't intuit that the client's going to do that themselves. You have to look at that. And then the other part is going through the price negotiation and then making a contract or sending an order of confirmation or an invoice, or if it's a thingy, a receipt. So if you're selling business to consumer, you want to at least get a receipt, and preferably also their email so that you can be in touch with them. So a lot of people who are selling thingies are using Square as a payment, and then therefore they're automatically getting the person's email when they send them an email receipt, or they can send them a text receipt. So the fourth phase then is, so what? Now you've sold people. It's much easier to keep people as clients than to keep fostering new ones. So your after-sales activities is what we call the maintenance of the sale. So you want to make sure that the order is kept, that there's continuous client care after the order is finished. So this might be a phone call. Did you get it? Is it what you wanted? You know, do you have anything else you need? I was thinking about you, and when you ordered that, I was thinking, I wondered if you'd be interested in this, because I was thinking about the other things you were telling me that were going on for you. So these are ways to get at client care afterwards and to get the repeat sales. So a point in this framework is the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So that means it's necessary for a startup company to be good at all 12 tasks if they're going to succeed. So you want to do, if you have more than you in your company, and I know since we have at least some established businesses, you may have a salesperson on commission, for example. So you might need to be planful with your commission salespeople and decide which tasks within each phase should go to whom for a particular sale, especially if you have long cycle sales. For example, if you were selling fancy dancy copiers, people don't make those decisions quickly. And so what goes into making that decision? So those are the things you're going to think about when you think through the sales chain. So now let's take a look at the tool. Okay, so as you know, every tool has a title, and this is the main big why of what you're using this for. In this case, you're figuring out what great service throughout the buying service process am I going to offer. So you can see it's broken up between before, during, and after, and there are possible service elements for each one, which we're going to talk about a little more. And what you should be thinking about what you could do today and what you might want to do in the future based on how you're growing, what you're offering, and what your clients need based on what they keep telling you, because you're listening 80% of the time. So whether you provide a physical product or a service, you're providing additional service to the client to make and keep them happy. So these are some possible ways to build a relationship, trust, and knowledge of what the client wants and needs. So when we look at the before, you can see that we're looking at what are things you can do before. You can give them service and product information. So that would be like a specific leave behind information sheet. It could be that you're having multiple customer conversations where you're helping them problem solve in ways that they haven't thought of. Many business owners, B2B, everybody's really busy, and so they don't, the opportunity to focus on a specific thing can be a real gift to them. You're helping them identify needs that you hear them saying that they may not be hearing themselves say. You could be providing documentation. We provided this service to this company, this company, this company, and you can call for references, this person, this person, this person. That's what it means by documentation and references. Testing opportunities is another way of saying demonstration. So you might find that people, like in some services like coaching, the only way to really sell coaching is for people to experience it. So it doesn't help to talk about it. That's nice, but it keeps it in the head. Rather, coaching is a fuller experience that really helps people tease out things that they haven't had time to sort out. And so for coaching, when a person is actually coached, they experience the value of that coaching. That's an example of a testing opportunity. Now there may be other things that you do, so that's why there's a couple of sheets here. One of the things that my husband does, and he's a Vistage executive coach, and one of the models that they use is what they call telling sessions. And I actually use that with prospects for WBDC, either funders or clients who are exploring whether to use this or not. Telling sessions are simply setting aside time where we meet in person and I tell you about what what I have, my business is about, and you tell me what your business is about, and then we look and see if there's synergies for us to work together. So that's another possibility in the before session. And then there's no harm. It's like, oh, that's great, I'm glad, and I'll keep you in mind if I know somebody who wants those kinds of services, if it's not a good fit. If you find that to be true, it's a good idea to have references that you can refer people on, because it's called giver's gain. So you might think about, like, given the kinds of clients I have, and if they say, I don't see a fit, what else can you offer them that might be a better fit for them? And then they're going to remember you as a forward-thinking person who cared about what they said and heard them, and is now, like when they hear of somebody that might better use your services, they may recommend you because they felt heard, even though it wasn't a good fit for them. Okay, so some people also, before buying, do a needs assessment, and they charge separately for that. So that could be another thing that you could offer before buying. And as I said, references from past happy clients are usually expected, with contact info, so that the new client or prospect can check on the validity of your claim, that those people were happy. And another thing about testing opportunities is another way of calling out customer validation. So in addition to including a demonstration, it could also include something like focus groups. Okay, so when we look at during the process where you're really, they've already said, I think I want to do this, and so now let's work on the mechanics of it. So there may be services that you order in the ordering cart. It could be as simple as agreeing on a deal, and that like how are they going to have, what do they need to track the transaction? Is it simply a receipt? If it's more complex services, again, you need to possibly create a proposal that outlines the need or the rationale for your proposal, and that proposal will be discussed, negotiated, and clarified. Or you may be drawing up a contract. The contract should include any elements that were relevant to the deal for each of you, but probably will include a description of the services at least and a list of the products. Agreed upon delivery dates are very important. Again, think under promise, over deliver. So if you can get it to them sooner, it delights the customer. And then agreeing on the scope of work is very important. In many service businesses, we have what we call mission creep or scope creep. And you've got to keep a lid on that, or you could lose your shirt. So you really want to think about that piece of it, and you want to be specific. And so if somebody says, well, I'd also like this and I'd also like that, it's like, those are great things for us to add on. The price for those things are, and so when would you like to adopt that? So, oh, I didn't know it was going to cost that good. Well, then I'm going to have to think about it. Well, great, you think about it. I'm glad to, let me know if you need to know anything more about it so before you make that decision. I'd be happy to give you any more information. So then you've turned it back into the ordering process again, as opposed to letting it become mission creep. Then, of course, you have the order confirmation, and this is really important that you both understand what you're really agreeing to. So again, the more complex the deal, the more complex this order confirmation, date, time of delivery, payment options. Are you going to pay? Is the payment expected upfront? Is it 30 days net, 60 days net? Is it negotiable? And so all of that becomes part of what should be discussed. And that's true for both of you. Like maybe the person at the other end can't pay you because they have to get money from their customers. So that's where the 30-day net is useful for both parties. So if they get paid, then they'll have the money to pay you. So you have to work out what works for you. Okay, so then after, when we start talking about what are some of the services you can offer afterwards, it's like the delivery service. Can you deliver it for them? Can you deliver it to their multiple locations? Do you have a distribution business that you use that you can rely on, that can reliably get things to the organizations? I'm thinking particularly of Whole Foods. We had a meeting with them yesterday to talk about how we could work together. And one of the things they brought up is, how oftentimes they work with very small businesses that need business development help, which is where we come in. But also then they help them with such things of like, okay, maybe you're to the stage now where you really should be looking at distribution companies. We use these ones. This is their set of procedures. This is how you work with them. So delivery service and delivery locations are part of what you could provide. You could provide training on how to use your thingy. And so, education and training could be part of a service. You may have a product that requires some tweaking sometimes or misunderstanding, and so you're available customer service-wise to answer the questions. We all know about technical support for our technical objects. And so this is something you should think about. Is this some sort of customer service and support would you give? Also, you want to think about guaranteeing your product or service. Don't do it unless you really feel this is something you can do. Customer service is great, but you do not have to return everybody's money all the time. You're going to be in the hole. You need to think about what you can really um, uh, promise and deliver. Okay, quality assurance. As you grow and you hire people, you need to know that people will do things your way, that you'll set up policies and procedures to create consistent quality or improve quality. You might have an evaluation process, a survey that you like. How did you like the product? How did it work for you? You might report on them or use them as a success story on your blog. You might just have ongoing communication. Hi, thanks for buying this, 2 months ago. I'm really glad. I'm wondering how it's working. I'm wondering if there's any other problems. Remember we talked about X, and I've been thinking about that. Wonder what you've done about that, and if we could be of service to you as you're thinking about resolving that problem. That's an example of talking about communication and reordering. And then, of course, what are you doing in the social media community to keep people aware of your latest additions or improvements or concerns from your customers and how you've remedied that? Those are all some ways that you can use this particular thing. So, as you look on the left, it talks to you about why you would use this kind of form, and kind of the process that I talked about. So after you say, yeah, those are relevant to my business, or no, then how will you flesh out that information? What are the examples you're going to use? For many of you who are starting, you may be writing scripts to practice what you're going to say so that you won't freeze up. You're not going to say the same script to everyone, but if you start with a script that helps you remember, okay, I need to make sure I talk with them about these key points because that's what they're concerned about, you'll talk to them about those key points. Sometimes visually and just kinesthetically writing it out or typing it out on your computer, keying it in, helps you remember. So do think about practicing how you'll describe your services, and again, this varies per customer. The bigger the kind of order, the more important it is to know who your decision maker is, how they make decisions, what's important to them, what's their pain point, so that you can be proactively thinking about that as you're having conversations and helping them think through how they can solve their problems in new ways with your services or products. So you're going to make a description of each of these services that you have to offer. You're going to perhaps include some of the service descriptions in your materials that we talked about developing materials that you share with them. You would, you'll have, as you grow, you're going to know what you need to put in your standard contracts and marketing materials. And at the front end, you're going to have to listen to your customers really deeply and hard to know exactly what they want. And then finally, you need to calculate the cost of providing this service. So as you see over at on the far right, it'll say price. So some of these services don't have like real dollar prices, but some of them do. Like when you do service and product information, you have print costs and preparation time. You may have designer costs and that sort of thing. But you need to remember that your time is valuable. So how much time can you spend on each one of these, and what does it cost you from doing something else? So you need to think about that. There isn't necessarily a dollar opportunity to that. I think if you look at for example, the demonstration opportunities, I would say that almost every time I demonstrated coaching, I got a contract. Yes, I'm that good, and you are too. So um, that was a particularly useful mechanism for me, because I would target the kinds of people I thought would most value my kind of services, and then have them experience coaching, and inevitably I got a contract. So that's, for me, this is the one that mattered the most. Very rarely did I need to leave product information behind. But sometimes I did when I was working with corporations. So you're going to need to look at, well, what's the price of that time? And so you'll think about those things as we go along. So remember, you can ask me questions. We're getting up towards the end of the hour, so I'm going to talk about next steps. So you want to brainstorm ahead of time what you can do that would be of service to your clients, obviously. That's what the whole purpose of this is about. How can you help them make using your product easier, faster, less costly? And then with your SBDC advisor, and definitely with your clients, maybe you want to use a focus group or do an e-survey to get feedback, or maybe you want to have a casual discussion with each buyer to help shape so that your services are even more in their language and more relevant to them. Again, you want to figure in the cost of the added value your services provide into your sales price, particularly if you're a service-based business. Your time and your intellectual property are what you sell. So you need to think about, how do you build in these costs of added services overall. And you also have to think about what the market can bear. Okay, so remember, ask for the sale. You have to ask for the sale, okay? Don't just say, oh, we had a really good conversation, and you're gonna just tell me you want it, right? No, you have to say, so something like these things. So have I answered all your questions? These are just some example questions you can buy. But I want to go back to this question that I just showed you, or this concern. Remember, service is time, time is money, and you're not making money during the time of the service that's in service of the sale, which is why you have to factor in the amount of time to prepare proposals, networking meetings, travel time, research time. These really aren't paid separately by the customer, but that's why some prices are higher. Some of these activities are factored in. So while there's no easy formula here, I suggest you research your competitors and get someone to be a decoy potential buyer and see what they find out about the prices. Maybe they will buy something from them. And this tool that we just talked about will give you a place to describe the service offering now and in the future, and what it might cost you to do that. And think of the cost in terms of hours if you can't think in terms of dollars. The pricing is most appropriate when you are considering some services that you see is of additional value to the customer and is also an additional cost to you. So think about when you are asked to change an order in a restaurant. Some things are just added okay and there's no charge, but some things cost more, so they charge you more. So, so that's what I wanted to say on this slide as well. Here, remember, can I stress this again? Ask for the sale. Don't expect the client to offer to buy. So these questions can prompt the buyer to come to closure and prompt you to close the deal. These questions also help answer those objections that people have. Like if they're still hanging on to some current concerns and they haven't said them, you might say, well, I was also worried about, or I was also wondering about. And if they're hemming and hawing, then the question, what can we do to help you move forward on this decision, might be useful. Then, when you sense that they're ready to buy, don't be afraid to ask. So, are you ready to close the deal? Are you ready to buy? Or are you ready to work together? Okay, and then follow up and keep it up. This is critical. Many people lose ongoing buyers because they haven't followed up. So don't just move on to other prospects. Put what happened in your customer relations management system. In Microsoft, this is known as Access. But you could use Goldmine. You can find whatever works for you. You need to think about, with your current clients, do you need to make adjustments to the contract? Do you need to contact a vendor on their behalf? Do you need to alert others that something's happening with them? You plan to touch base in a reasonable time. Ask them what that would be. Even if they say, oh, that's not necessary. Still, ask them. It's like, well, for my peace of mind, I'd like to, find out when it would be appropriate for, I don't want to bug you, but I also want to be appropriately in touch with you. So you want to check on the product or how their service is working for them. If they're experiencing glitches, or if they think of something else they thought of or they might need related to what they just purchased. So again, this is part of that client, taking care of the client post-sale. And since you are my dear clients, here's the next things that you need to be doing. If you are a startup, you want to use us as your business advisors, you can talk to me or Karen. You can go to this site for those 2 online on-demand sales courses that I told you about. How to build a sales funnel and how to prepare for sales call. They will reinforce what we've talked about today. If you are, since half of you were in business 3 years or more, you might want to talk to Karen Goldner or Cynthia Johnson, who's our Director of Established Businesses, or Jamie Neely, the Associate Director of Established Businesses. And if you're outside of the 6-county Chicagoland area or outside of Illinois, we serve all of Illinois, you might want to find your closest SBDC. And you can go to sba.gov and type in your state, and you'll find out where the closest SBDC is. So with an advisor like me, you might want to work on the issues that you have, and hopefully that will help you break through to some next level of business acumen or planning on the issues you prioritize. And of course, you can work on these on your own. So I'm going to be asking you for your questions very soon. And so when you see an advisor, you're going to have a common language, and you can be more prepared and able to do more on your own. So are you ready? Are there questions you want to ask me? I want to ask you at least 1 or 2 more poll questions if you'll stay on the line. So, so let's have our next poll question. Okay, so now we want to see what you think your results are. 2/3 of you have voted. We may have some tired fingers out there. I know the rest of you can vote. Anybody else going to vote? You've got 5 more seconds to do so. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's post the results with 75% voting. Most of you are going to do everything, and some of you are going to do something, so great. So let's have our last poll question. And remember, you can write questions as well to me in the little question box. Okay, so lastly, we want to know if you are any of these things, because we have grantors and when we track this kind of information. So we'd be very interested in finding out whether you're a veteran, whether you're interested in opening or already in a child care business, and if you're an established business in Aurora. With 75% voting, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close the poll. And you can see that you're none of the above, but you're still very important to me. So I'm looking at the questioning box, and I'm feeling very lonesome because nobody's asked me anything. I'm still here for another couple minutes, so I want to see if there's any other questions. Oh, good. At least somebody said thanks. You're welcome. All right, so I assume you are all going to shift your thinking as you can do this as a part of your service to the clients who you want to help with your product or service for their lives and their businesses to function more effectively. And so I'm hoping you'll be able to use these skills, and I look forward to seeing you someday at WBDC. Thanks so much for joining the call. And I have one more